handle the truth. Son, we live in a world that has walls, and those walls have to be guarded by men with guns. Who's gonna do it? You? You, Lieutenant Weinberg? I have a greater responsibility than you can possibly fathom.
The man who once ruled Hollywood now hides behind closed doors. Jack Nicholson, once the ultimate symbol of charisma and cinematic genius, has vanished from public life, and his rare appearances have fans deeply concerned. Is he battling illness? Has the once great actor lost touch with reality? Or is Jack Nicholson simply done with the world? For decades, he dazzled us with unforgettable roles, scandalous stories, and magnetic charm. But now, sightings are rare, whispers of dementia swirl, and his Mulholland Drive mansion has become more fortress than home. In this video, we reveal the full truth behind the recluse legend, his hidden struggles, and what's really happening behind those Hollywood Hills gates. From Hollywood Titan to Ghost.
And the winner is Jack Nicholson and 1 Flew Over the Cuckoo.
There was a time when Jack Nicholson could electrify a room just by walking into it. From red carpet premieres to LA Lakers games, his presence was magnetic, a symbol of cool confidence and cinematic royalty. But that was then. In recent years, fans have noticed something deeply unsettling. Jack Nicholson has all but disappeared from public life. His once vibrant image has faded into something more ghostly, more tragic, a living legend hiding in the shadows. The change didn't happen overnight. It began with fewer public appearances, missed events, and an eerie silence from a man who once loved the limelight. The whispers started around 2013 when Nicholson reportedly stepped back from acting due to memory loss. Though the rumors were never officially confirmed, they stuck. Paparazzi sightings dwindled, interviews stopped, and then came the photos. Blurry shots of Jack on the balcony of his Mulholland Drive mansion looking unrecognizable, frail, withdrawn, and somber. In May 2023, he reappeared courtside at a Lakers playoff game with his son Ray, the first time fans had seen him out in over a year.
We reserve the final spot for Jack.
Instead of the charismatic grin and signature sunglasses, Nicholson looked disoriented, even haunted. The internet buzzed. Was he sick? Was it dementia? What had become of the actor who once embodied vitality and rebellion? Insiders tried to explain. He's made it clear his home is his castle, one source told Radar Online. It's like he doesn't want to face reality anymore, and that's just sad. Another claimed Jack simply preferred solitude in his later years and didn't feel the need to perform anymore, not for fans, not for Hollywood. And the question that echoes louder with each passing year is simple, haunting, and unanswered. What's really happening to Jack Nicholson? The pain behind his family's secret.
Nicholson grew up in Neptune, New Jersey. His father, an alcoholic, abandoned the family soon after his birth.
Long before Jack Nicholson became a cinematic icon, his life was marked by a deeply personal deception, one that would shake the foundations of his identity decades later. Raised in New Jersey by what he believed was a traditional nuclear family, Jack grew up thinking his grandmother, Ethel May, was his mother, and that his two sisters, June and Lorraine, were just that, siblings. But this facade masked a family secret carefully constructed in the conservative climate of the 1930s. June was actually Jack's biological mother, Lorraine was his aunt, and Ethel May was his grandmother. His father is an alcoholic and abandoned their family.
Jack Nicholson was raised by Ethel May and John J. Nicholson, who were actually his grandparents. His sister, June, who was 17 years older than him, was in fact his biological mother.
The truth came crashing down when Nicholson was in his mid-30s. It wasn't whispered in a family conversation or revealed during a private moment. Instead, it was unearthed by Time magazine reporters doing background research for a profile on the actor. Though the article didn't publish the detail, Nicholson was privately informed and blindsided. By the time the truth reached him, both June and Ethel May had already passed away. There would be no explanation, no closure, no opportunity to process this bombshell with the women who had shaped his earliest years. Jack's initial reaction was disbelief, followed by a reluctant kind of admiration for the cover-up. "I was very impressed by their ability to keep the secret, if nothing else," he would later say in interviews. It's a statement that tries to sound lighthearted, but can't hide the gravity of what he really felt. That kind of secret, so tightly wound into your origin, your sense of self, doesn't just disappear after a witty quote. It lingers, grows, and casts a shadow on everything that follows. For Jack, this revelation didn't just reshape his understanding of family. It deepened his skepticism of people and intensified his lifelong craving for privacy. A man already leaning towards solitude became even more guarded. Friends have remarked that even at the height of his fame, Nicholson never let people get too close. And how could he? When the people he trusted most had kept his greatest truth from him for decades, trust would become a luxury, not a default. That early betrayal would set the emotional tone for much of Nicholson's life, fueling both his distrust and his defiance, traits that followed him into Hollywood's spotlight. Rise to fame against all odds.
I probably really started thinking about doing it after I was doing it. And vaguely, when I was working at MGM in the cartoon department, a job which I got really mainly to observe movie making because I was sort of starstruck that time. Still am.
Jack Nicholson didn't land in Hollywood with a golden ticket or a famous last name. His journey to stardom began like a lot of American dreams, by accident. At 17, he arrived in Los Angeles on what was supposed to be a short holiday. But the city seduced him, and instead of heading back to New Jersey, he stayed, hungry to make a life for himself in the movies. With no connections and no clear path, Nicholson took whatever jobs he could find around production houses, delivering mail, running errands, learning everything he could by simply being on the periphery of power. Those early years were defined by grit and rejection. Nicholson's face wasn't conventionally handsome, and his offbeat charisma didn't exactly scream leading man to 1950s casting agents. For a long time, he was typecast in B-movies and low-budget horror films. His debut in The Crybaby Killer in 1958 barely made a ripple. For over a decade, he toiled in obscurity, constantly on the edge of giving up. "Everyone who knew me said I was good," Nicholson later said, "but everyone who knew me said I wouldn't make it because I hadn't made it so far." He wasn't bitter, just matter of fact. The climb was slow, and the view from the bottom was grueling. Then came Easy Rider. In 1969, after years of thankless roles, Nicholson was cast as George Hanson, the hard-drinking Southern lawyer who tags along with two bikers on a countercultural journey across America.
The turning point for you was certainly Easy Rider. Someone told me that you modeled your part, the part of the Southern lawyer, on LBJ.
Well, I didn't have the normal length of time that you would have to study a dialect, and since the character was from Texas, and some of the speeches that he had were sort of evangelical.
His performance was magnetic, funny, layered, and instantly iconic. Hollywood finally took notice. In one film, Nicholson went from unknown to next big thing, earning his first Oscar nomination and unlocking a wave of opportunity that would define the next 3 decades. With that breakthrough came an era of cinematic dominance. In the 1970s and 80s, Nicholson delivered one legendary performance after another: Chinatown, 5 Easy Pieces, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, The Shining. He became known for playing characters on the edge, unpredictable, intense, deeply human. But those roles weren't just brilliant casting. In many ways, they reflected Jack himself. He wasn't just acting, he was channeling something real, some mix of trauma, ambition, and rebellion that Hollywood couldn't look away from. While fame gave him power, it also intensified his desire to live on his own terms, leading him down a path of indulgence, infamy, and isolation. The Party King of Mulholland Drive. Once Jack Nicholson broke into the upper echelon of Hollywood, he didn't just become a star, he became a legend of excess. And nowhere was this more evident than at his home on Mulholland Drive, a mansion that would become the epicenter of Hollywood's most infamous parties. Alongside neighbors like Warren Beatty and Marlon Brando, Nicholson helped transform that stretch of real estate into what the tabloids dubbed Bad Boy Drive. If the Chateau Marmont was where celebrities played, Jack's house was where they disappeared into the night and sometimes didn't come back out until morning. His parties were legendary, whispered about in entertainment columns and industry circles. Illegal substances flowed freely, women came and went, and the music never stopped. Friends, actors, and rock stars described a near-mythic scene, an endless haze of smoke, laughter, and reckless abandon. Jack didn't just attend the party, he was the party. He relished in the role of host, king, and instigator. It was the 1970s after all, and Nicholson embodied everything about the era's wild, untamed spirit. But it wasn't all just for show. There was a deliberate rhythm to Jack's madness. He knew how to balance chaos and control, at least for a while. He once told the Daily Mail, "I've woken up in trees. I've woken up almost hanging off cliffs. But I've always known how to sort myself out." It was his way of saying, yes, I went too far, but never far enough to crash. At least not publicly. Those close to him saw both brilliance and danger. His longtime partner, Angelica Houston, who lived through the wildest years of Nicholson's reign, acknowledged his illegal substance use with a mix of fondness and concern. She told Vulture that he likely used cocaine to battle lethargy rather than feed a habit, hinting at a man who partied not for escape, but to maintain momentum. Still, there were moments when it went too far, when the charming bad boy turned unpredictable and even frightening. And that reputation would follow him. In the public eye, Jack was magnetic, sexy, and mysterious. But behind the scenes, some found his behavior troubling. Ray Winstone, his co-star in The Departed, once said there was no need for Nicholson's arrogance and sense of superiority. Others said he wore his infamy like a badge of honor, pushing the limits of every room he entered. As those doors closed, so did a chapter, one that left behind a trail of legends, rumors, and regrets that would never fully be answered. Scandals, lawsuits, and burned bridges. Jack Nicholson's rise to superstardom came with a dark undercurrent, one that blurred the lines between his off-screen persona and his on-screen madness. As his legend grew, so did the stories, and eventually, so did the scandals. While fans adored his devil-may-care attitude, others saw a man who pushed boundaries far past acceptable limits. The charming outlaw of Hollywood was also a man frequently at the center of disturbing headlines. One of the most serious accusations came in 1996, when Nicholson was hit with a lawsuit by a sex worker who claimed he assaulted her after refusing to pay the agreed amount. According to court documents, she alleged Nicholson became verbally abusive and physically violent, an incident that reportedly left her with long-term health issues. Though the case was settled quietly, it resurfaced later when her legal team claimed Nicholson had caused damage to her brain and vision. It was a far cry from the smirking star fans knew from movie screens. And the allegations didn't stop there. In the 1990s, another woman accused Nicholson of such aggressive behavior that she said it ruptured her breast implants. These weren't just rumors whispered at Hollywood parties. They were legal battles, disturbing details, and reminders that the actor's private life was far from harmless rebellion. The controversies weren't limited to women or violence. One of the most troubling aspects of Nicholson's legacy is his continued relationship with filmmaker Roman Polanski. After Polanski directed Nicholson in the classic film Chinatown, he remained close with the actor, even after Polanski was convicted of substance-enabled non-consensual acts against a 13-year-old girl at Nicholson's own home. Jack wasn't there during the incident, but the fact that it occurred in his residence and that he chose not to publicly sever ties with Polanski raised questions about his moral compass. And as Hollywood began holding its legends accountable, Nicholson quietly retreated, leaving behind a legacy as complex as it is iconic. Fatherhood, regrets, and estrangement. For all of Jack Nicholson's notoriety, charisma, and larger-than-life presence, one of the quietest yet most revealing chapters of his story lies in how he handled fatherhood. Over the years, Nicholson has fathered 6 children with 5 different women: Jennifer Nicholson, Caleb Goddard, Honey Hallman, Lorraine Nicholson, Ray Nicholson, and Tessa Gurin. But behind those names is a complicated truth. Nicholson has only maintained consistent relationships with a few of them. And for the others, the connection has been anything but steady. To the outside world, Jack often portrayed himself as a proud, if unconventional, father. He was occasionally photographed with his daughter Lorraine, or sitting courtside at Lakers games with his son Ray, the child he shares with actress Rebecca Broussard. In these rare public moments, he appeared as a doting dad, seemingly enjoying his children's company away from the madness of the spotlight. But these images only told part of the story. Several of his other children, particularly those born from more fleeting relationships, have spoken openly or been reported on as feeling estranged from the star. Tessa Gurin, Nicholson's alleged daughter with waitress Janine Marie Gurin, has publicly stated that Nicholson never acknowledged her as his own. In interviews, Tessa has described what it was like growing up knowing who her father was, yet never hearing from him. She was raised without his support, not just financially, but emotionally. "I knew he was powerful," she once said, "but he was never a presence in my life." The emotional distance Nicholson maintained with some of his children is not just a tabloid detail, it's a pattern. While he enjoyed the perks of being a Hollywood icon, he didn't take the same pride in being a present father to all his kids. And though Nicholson has never fully addressed these inconsistencies in interviews, his silence speaks volumes. Perhaps it's no coincidence that Nicholson's own childhood was built on confusion and secrecy. Learning in adulthood that his sister was his mother and his grandmother was actually his primary parent left a permanent scar. Family for Nicholson has always been complicated. It's possible he repeated some of those same patterns without even realizing it, keeping emotions at arm's length, avoiding messy conversations, staying elusive when things got too personal. As the years pass, the question grows louder. Will Jack Nicholson's legacy be defined more by the characters he played or the family he left behind? Health rumors and the truth today. In recent years, Jack Nicholson's once familiar face has become a rare sight. So rare that every public appearance sparks global headlines and a flood of concern. When photos emerged in 2023 of the 87-year-old actor sitting courtside at a Lakers playoff game with his son Ray, fans were struck not by the usual charisma, but by how unrecognizable he looked. Gone was the sharp-dressed, sunglasses-wearing Hollywood icon. In his place was a man who looked frail, withdrawn, and almost haunted by time. For over a decade now, rumors have circulated about Nicholson's health. Multiple outlets have reported that he may be suffering from dementia or cognitive decline, though these claims have never been publicly confirmed by the actor or his family. Still, insiders have suggested that he's chosen to step away from the spotlight because he's no longer comfortable being seen in public, or because he's simply not the same Jack anymore. "It's like he doesn't want to face reality," one source told Radar Online. And that's just sad. Nicholson himself hinted at his changing reality in one of his final public interviews, saying, "My life has changed. People won't believe that, but it's true. But you adjust your life to your circumstances, and I can spend a lot of time on my own." For a man who once fed off attention, red carpets, and the buzz of Hollywood, this retreat into solitude is jarring, and for many fans, heartbreaking. His beloved Mulholland Drive mansion, once ground zero for the wildest nights in showbiz, has become his fortress. Neighbors say he rarely leaves the house, preferring instead to sit on his balcony, stare out at the hills, and reflect. Occasionally, paparazzi catch a glimpse, his hair wild, his clothes disheveled, his gaze distant. These moments only fuel the speculation. Is Jack Nicholson still mentally present? Is he battling illness in secret? Or has he simply chosen to leave the world behind on his own terms? Despite the rumors, one thing remains clear. Jack is not seeking the spotlight anymore. He hasn't acted since How Do You Know in 2010, and the much-hyped remake of Tony Erdmann, which was supposed to mark his return, quietly faded away. His agents no longer take calls about potential projects. He's turned inward, with no plans to reemerge. For a man who once described himself as the most successful actor in the history of movies, financially speaking, that silence is profound. Fans have struggled to accept this fading out. Some wait hopefully for a surprise appearance, a final role, a heartfelt interview to explain it all. Jack Nicholson's life has been anything but ordinary, filled with brilliance, chaos, scandal, and silence. As fans, we hope the legend finds peace, even if it's far from the spotlight. Like, comment, and subscribe for more deep dives into the icons you thought you knew. And hit the next video to uncover Hollywood's most haunting disappearances.